Chin.
Yo, Happy New Year. Happy New Year, January 2024. We are rolling, kicking this year off strong. Welcome to the Reimagining Worship podcast. It's a privilege for me to be able to be here, and it's an honor for you to check this page out, whether you're listening on a podcast or watching this on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, I see you. Good to see you. If this is your first time here to Reimagining Worship, I want to communicate what Reimagining Worship is. The mission of Reimagining Worship is to foster an environment that inspires and empowers creatives within the church, celebrating their unique gifts and harnessing their talents to enhance worship experiences. We're committed to nurturing a community that values creativity as an expression of faith, fostering connection, and promoting a deeper relationship with Jesus. That's what we exist to do. So I'm glad that you're here. I'm excited about this year and kind of what is planned for this year and the things that have already happened and the things that are going to happen. So I kind of want to dive right in. This year, we're starting with a brand new thing. If this is, like I said, if it's your first time, check out the first few seasons. I have a bunch of friends on and other worship leaders from around the country. Then I kind of moved into what it looks like to care for creatives, burnt out creatives. Shout out to Healthy Creatives. This is my brand. Healthy Creatives is the brand. But that was last year, and this year I'm kicking off something brand new. A little bit of housekeeping before we dive in. First off, I want to invite you to check out, the links will be all below, but trevorchin.com or reimaginingworship.org. You can hop on there and you'll get to my website with a bunch of resources. There's a lot on there, and that's going to be like just a place where I continue to put things. Everything that I develop, work through, think through is going there. There's a bunch of free resources, and then for only $20, so you can continue to support the ministry, support what's going on. For $20, you get an all access pass, and that gives access to all of my trainings. Right now, I have maybe 6-7 hours of video on there of just all of this stuff, like healthy creative stuff. We did a conference in October. That's on there. We did a conference in September. That's on there. I'm doing a conference in January. That will be on there after the 27th. So there's so much on there. And then if you want to rock out with the Healthy Creatives t-shirt, that's coming soon too. So I want to invite you to do that. All that will be on the site at trevorchin.com. All the links are below. But I just want to dive in. Let's just get rolling this year. As we think through worship specifically, I know we did a lot of creative stuff and soul care for creatives and everything like that last year, but this year I want to work through one of the big topics that I've been talking with a lot of people about. Like, I think the primary question is like, hey, Trev, you have anybody that can come lead worship? Hey, Trev, I'm looking for a worship leader. Hey, Trev, I'm looking for a creative director or a music director or worship, whatever the case may be. This is my regular weekly conversation. I've had these conversations way too often. Part of that is there was just there's a lack. There's been transition, or everyone is booked up. Part of that is the amount of new churches that are sprouting up, that are happening. Part of that is the amount of burnout worship leaders and creatives have dealt with over the last few years, especially through COVID. And then another really, really big part, in my humble estimation, is the lack of development and discipleship and care for those people. It happens. You stop working through developing people, and then the people that you want to see develop are not being developed. So this year, this podcast, this season, I'm working through an e-course right now, and it's going to be all here for you. I'm going to expand it a little bit more to make it an actual course, but I'm going to work through this course with y'all here on YouTube or on the podcast, however you listen. If you're listening, check out, I don't know what my Instagram thing is, but check out Reimagine the Worship podcast on YouTube rather. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's at Teach and Creates. All right, that's enough self plugs. But this year, this podcast is going to be how to not find but develop your next worship leader. This podcast is for pastors who have a shepherding heart that want to see development happen. This is for existing worship leaders who are looking to develop someone else. These are for people that desire to be a worship leader but don't know step one for that. All of those folks, this is like the 101 from rooter to tutor of how to develop your next worship leader. They're not going to be available if we don't develop them. Like I'll just put that like that. Like simply put, we have to do the work of development. So, let's go ahead and dive right in. The first chapter or the first idea is I call it laying the first stone. These are just some of the foundations of a worship leader, what it means to be a worship leader, grasping the ideas of music, grasping the ideas of understanding the role. Like, and for the time's sake, let me start there. Just understanding the role of what a worship leader is. The capacity of a worship leader, the demand of a worship leader, the consistency of a worship leader. There's 52 weeks and 52 Sundays in a year. In those Sundays, you have some Good Fridays sprinkled in. You have some special events sprinkled in. You have some worship nights sprinkled in. There's a lot going on. A typical church does about 65 to 75 services a year if they're only running one service on Sundays. If you're just doing like 11 o'clock service, there's typically like 65 to 75 services a year, from worship nights, baptisms, prayer nights, all that kind of stuff. So understanding the role, understanding what is being asked of you. I'll also add, that's a lot of Sundays. That's a lot of events and services to be able to sing and lead and care and do all that kind of stuff. That's why, and I'll argue this all the time, like, if you're a worship leader currently, that is like you're a sole worship leader that is just kind of in the thick of it yourself, and you're doing all 65 of those services, this podcast is for you. Let's work to develop the next one, the next worship leader, someone else that can take up some of these spaces. And I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but that doesn't even mean get Jimmy, who's 12 years old, that could play guitar a little bit, and put him up on Sunday. No, let's find different spaces for him to be able to grow, get reps outside of just a Sunday morning situation. That's children's church, that's baptism Sundays, that's prayer nights, little things like that. But neither here nor there. Understanding the role. We think through and we're going to talk through all of this. This is like 13, 14 parts, but the emotional necessity, the spiritual component, the ethical facets of worship, the role, setting the stage, onboarding people, all of these things we're going to talk through. So we want to dive right in. First off, again, I told you we're starting from the first stone, the first brick. The first idea around developing your next worship leader is understanding basic music theory. Anticlimactic? I understand. We'll get there. Like if you're much more advanced, we'll get there eventually. Understanding basic music theory, like the necessity of understanding of how music works, of keys, of what key the song is in, how the song is structured. To lead in worship is to communicate the language of music. Thus, a solid grasp of music theory is indispensable. So you want to think through what it looks like just to have basic music theory. If you're unfamiliar with that, find a music teacher, find a YouTube course, find a what's the thing called, master class type thing, to just understand some basic music theory, because you're gonna need to communicate this same basic music theory to your team, or at worst understand it for yourself to be able to lead. That's the first big idea. The second big idea is mastering an instrument. Mastering an instrument is important if you desire to be a worship leader that also can lead a band. I would argue that it's good to find an instrument that you're comfortable with, that you can begin to do the work of mastering. Piano and guitar would be the primary two that I would point towards. Depending on your context, either one can work very, very well, but find an instrument that you can work through. A worship leader must not only know their music, but the instrument as well, whether it's piano, guitar, or your own voice. Dive into the ideas, the fundamentals, the practice routines. What does a practice routine look like? What are you practicing? Are you just preparing for Sunday, or are you practicing some of the background stuff? An easy thing with this is find a music teacher. Find a music teacher. Shameless plug. My wife and I have a music school, melissatmusic.com, and it's all online, and we're looking to get in-person space in January or February. So, hey, if you're looking for a music teacher, we have that available as well. But that was a shameless plug. Shout out to my wife. But think through the music, think through the instrument that you want to work through. And even if it is just your voice, like that leads to the second idea, like vocal techniques. The voice is a powerful instrument. Your voice is good for worship leading. This is something that you're going to need in one of these services that we're talking about. And it's Sunday morning. You're going to need to learn how to use your voice and to communicate with pitch, with clarity, with intentionality, with tonality, and all of that kind of stuff. Like I said, this is one-on-one stuff, and I'm kind of just briefly talking through all the one-on-one stuff, but vocal technique is super important. Not only is vocal technique important, vocal health is super important. If you look on my earlier video, my wife is doing a full class of like how to care for your voice, how to care for your voice the night before, how to care for your voice after you sing, how to care for your voice the morning of, healthy warm-ups that you can do. Like all these things are super important because especially if you sing in more than 2 songs back to back, you'll get hoarse, you'll crack, voice exhaustion, all that kind of stuff. So proper voice technique is super, super, super important. Another thing, as we just continue to talk through the basics, is song selection and arrangement. Song selection and arrangement. The musical theory, the basics of music theory and the basics of mastering your instrument. Well, the basics of mastering is but the instrumentation, as well as the vocal ability, as well as the basics to music theory, are all important as we talk through arrangement. When we think through arrangement, this is what songs are being picked. What songs are you listening to? What songs are you selecting to sing on Sunday morning? Some songs are great for private worship, but not all songs are good for corporate worship. I'm gonna make that plain. I want to argue. All songs are good for private worship, but not all songs are good for corporate worship. The purpose of the gathering, the purpose when we gather together, we sing songs collectively together as a local church, as a body, as one. We want to be able to sing songs that, even when we think through the language in the songs, the we's instead of the I's, the us's instead of the me's, just language is important. As we think through the actual song selection. I have a full course on how to pick a song selection. And then like it's on my website, there's even a rubric of like, is this song good for Sunday morning? Is this song good for corporate worship? And it's kind of a step-by-step guide to help you process through that idea. But not only is the song selection important, the arrangement is important. We're thinking through what keys are we singing in? Keys that are easy for men versus keys that are easy for women, and what keys work well for both. That's super important. How are we going to structure the song? How many times are we going to sing this chorus before it gets too redundant? How many times are we going to sing, loop this bridge before it gets super boring? Should we sing this more than once so we don't miss this moment, or we don't miss this what's being communicated? Are there too many words? All of these things are extremely, extremely, extremely important as we think through song selection and arranging said songs. Pray about this. Look through even your the pastor's the sermon matrix to see kind of what is being preached this quarter or this month or this year, depending on how your church does it. So you can even align with what's going on, whether it be about faith or hope or finance, whatever the case may be, so you can pick appropriate songs that can match with those things. Just a few more, and like I said, I want to land this plane. These are intended, let me just clarify, these are intended to be brief, introductory, And I like to keep these podcasts under 15 minutes if possible. Don't know where I'm at right now in terms of time, but in a perfect world, I like to keep them under 15 minutes just so they're like easier to grasp, bite-sized pieces. So song selection and arrangement is super important. Choosing the right song is crucial to leading effective worship. So secondly, or second to lastly, leading practice sessions. These opportunities, these rehearsal opportunities are where your leadership begins to sprout. There's a quote that if you're a leader with no one following you, you're just taking a walk. I like that quote. But these rehearsals are opportunities for you to be able to lead. This is where you show the efficiency and all those other characteristics that I communicated before. These rehearsals should be productive. They should be planned. They should be thought out. You should be able to create an environment of care, of joy, of excitement, and make sure that you spend the time to prepare for these so you can be in and out in a timely manner. I'm not saying rush these things, but honor people's time. If you're going to have rehearsal and everybody get there and nobody know the music, you included, and now we're spending the bigger part of rehearsal of trying to learn this music, then we've wasted everybody's time. And we've honestly wasted the time of the people who spent the time throughout the week. So these practice sessions or rehearsals are not time to learn the music or think through the music or think through the arrangement. All this needs to be done throughout the week, which is why oftentimes like it's good to have those rehearsals towards the end of the week or just on Thursday nights. Thursday night rehearsal gives enough time Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to think through the songs, pray through the songs, see if they line up, see if they add up to what's going on in our congregation, in our context, whatever the case may be. And I'm gonna talk about that in a second. Arrange the songs. Arrange the music. This is where we're gonna lead from this song and go into this song. All of that happens on Monday through Wednesday. When we come to rehearsal on Thursday, it is about getting all those individual pieces together as one to blend well together. Rehearsal is about blending, not learning. Rehearsal is about more creative expression, not learning. Hey, let's add this. I think this will sound great if we did this. That happens at rehearsal. Not how the song go. Now, I'm guilty of this in a lot of ways. Got a lot going on, but that's more absent-mindedness. Less I don't prepare for the music, but that's neither here nor there. But leading these songs, leading these rehearsals is not just about perfecting the music or just blending. This is the opportunity for care. This is treat rehearsals like a mini service. This is where community is established. This is where worship actually happens. Oftentimes, the worship for the worship team happens in rehearsal over and above a Sunday morning. We're leading, yes, on Sunday morning, but like just the time to be able to sit and soak. No timers, no lyric screens, no expectations. Like, we're just here listening to the music. We're playing the music. We're singing the music. We're just soaking in the music. And spend this time to pray. Spend this time to develop community. If at all possible, get some chips, some water, and some tea just to be able to break some bread, even on a tight budget. But utilize this time to really honestly and authentically care for your team. I want to encourage multiple spaces or times to be able to do that because the worship team specifically is one of those teams that is on a regular cycle. Every 6.5 days, it's time again. There's 4 or 5 songs on a Sunday. There's a rehearsal. There's extra services. Like it's. And I don't like to use the word, but it's a rat race in a lot of ways. It's a hamster. It can be a hamster wheel. One of the things that stops the hamster wheel of Sunday to Sunday worship is actually care and community in your actual team. Spend the time, ask questions. What are you praying for in this season? What do you believe in God for in this season? How can I pray for you in this season? How's life going? What do you have going on in your personal life that I can come support or encourage? All of these things can happen in rehearsal. So don't just limit rehearsal to like, all right, we got these songs tight. All right, I see y'all on Sunday. No, man, no one wants to do that. No one is going to roll with you for an extended period of time, just on a regular rat race of we're just singing and we're doing. No, develop some doggone community. Care for your team. This is where a lot of that time comes in. That leads to another idea. The worship leader is a shepherd. The worship leader is a shepherd. It is your opportunity and responsibility to shepherd your team, to care for your team, to care for those who are around you. But not only that, we're called to shepherd the moment on Sunday morning. We're called to shepherd the congregation as we're singing, as we're leading, as we're praying, as we're doing all of these things. Like we are shepherding these moments. I talk about this a lot in some of my conference settings, but like I'll just briefly communicate it here. Like music in and of itself is an emotional essence. Like it's emotional. Music evokes emotion, period. When you're happy, I can give all the emotions, and you can think of a song that correlates to them. Like music does that. That's why we don't watch movies without no music around it, because it can guide and lead where we want the emotional responses to be. That being said, be intentional to steward those moments well. Steward the moments that you are given the opportunity to steward. In a worship leading context, well, what needs to be said, what doesn't need to be said, what verse can be read, spoken over the people, what silence should happen. There's so many different things that you can be intentional with in those moments as you develop these arrangements, as you develop these songs, as you pick the songs. Like, find out what it looks like to shepherd these moments. And then even on Sunday morning, like spend the time to shepherd your team. Even then, hey, listen, y'all, we're about to walk into battle. Like we often and that's like, not to use a bunch of military language, but that's why we need commanders. Like we need people that are like hype men, if you will. Like, yo, it's time to go. We're about to go in. We're about to leave this room and leave this space, and we're going to get on the stage. We're going to get on these instruments and on these microphones, and we have the opportunity to lead this church in the worship. Folk done had a hellacious week. Folk done had a hellacious month. Folk got a lot going on in their life, and oftentimes folk are coming to service for a doggone breakthrough. These worship moments are the opportunities that we can speak truth into them, speak the gospel into them. Sing it over them. I love all the times when you just see David just worshiping and caring for the king, and even in those ways. Like those are the moments that we get to just spend with Jesus, not only with for ourselves, but we get to be the lead worshipers as we are worshiping ourselves and shepherding the congregation through that same worship. So the worship leader is a shepherd, so we need to work through shepherding those moments. But not only that, this is the last thing and the last thing only for this section. The worship leader is a cultural exegete. Now, let me say that again. The worship leader's responsibility is to exegete the culture of the community that your church sits in and the church itself. One of the ways to be a good shepherd is to know the people who you are shepherding. Ask those questions. Find out what's going on. What are the pain points? All right, I'm going to say this. I wasn't going to say it, but I'm now going to say it. Listen, most of the music that we listen to on the radio is the music that we play on Sunday mornings. Why? It's familiar. We understand it. We know it. Beautiful. But pending the context that you're in, the songs that are written on the radio are written for a certain demographic or a certain context. It's a market. There's a market. These are markets. This is an industry. Christian music, like it or not, is an industry. And there is a target market or a target demographic that this industry is going after. Nothing, I'm not saying it's bad, horrible, or whatever the case may be. I'm not even saying that to be the case. What I'm saying is that market your church? Sometimes it might be, sometimes it might not be. But that's why we need to do the intentional work of understanding who our church is, who's in those seats that we're, who's in the seats of the people that we're leading. Who's there? Who's not there? Because everything that's saying on the radio is not meant for your church. Even if it's meant for a church, it might not be meant for your church. We need to be intentional to exegete the context around us. What's going on with the people that are sitting in these pews? What's going on in the cultural moment that we're in? If we're going through an extremely difficult time, don't just get up there and sing a whole bunch of happy, 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 joy, joy songs. What does it look like to lament? What does it look like to pray? What does it look like to Lord, like the Lord is my shepherd. He always guides me. What verses are you going to speak? What songs are you going to, like, yo, all of this is super, super, super important. Be intentional with the moment, be intentional with your context, be intentional with your city demographic, be intentional with the people that are in the doggone pews, because these are the moments that we're given to shepherd, to care, to love, to lead. Knowing who's in there, knowing all that is super, super, super important. So the reason why shepherding is important, because learning to exegete your context comes from shepherding and knowing the people who are in your congregation. So listen, family, I hope that was encouraging. I hope that was helpful. If so, like, share, subscribe, tell a friend. We're going to be at it again. I'm going to say, see you again next week. Let's hope I'm consistent enough to be able to be here next week. I'm just joking, but but my goal is to be able to do one of these a week, just as we prepare for this new year, like being intentional about shepherding and developing this next generation of worship leaders. Find a youngin, 12, 13, 14, someone that's willing to grow and develop, that you can care for and shepherd. Just a 10-second story. Like, that was my background. And a lot of people that are in my seat right now have that same story. There was someone that came along when they was 14, 15-year-old, invested in them, gave them music lessons, gave them coaching, gave them discipleship, shared the gospel with them, gave them leadership opportunities, gave them opportunities to lead a team, then helped them find a space to be a leader on a regular basis. Like, find someone that you can do that same thing for. It's our responsibility to be able to do that, because it was done for us. And I don't know what happened, but in some point in time, all of that development time done stopped. And then there was a gig culture that happened, and everyone started taking gigs, and then churches started pimping out musicians. That's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. But churches started pimping out musicians and then stealing musicians for $25 extra more a Sunday. And then it turned into this church musician context, and there's a lack of discipleship. There's a lack of care. There's a lack of investment. There's a lack of gospel truth. And I'm just like, and now we're here. And everyone's saying, I ain't got to worship leader. Because we stopped developing. We stopped caring. We stopped supporting. We stopped investing. I used to go to Guitar Center on Saturday mornings, and everyone and their mama was there playing keys. Man, there was pastors there. My pastor was there. Like, yo, what's up? Connecting with people, meeting people. Man, how can I care? Like, yo, man, my pastor bought my first 2 keyboards. Like, what are we talking? Like, it's our job now. For the folks who are in this seat right here, who got a little gray in your beard or gray in your hair, it's time to find someone that you can pour into, develop, care for, shepherd, encourage, be frustrated with, then be frustrated with you, mess up, fix it, mess up again, fix it. But really spend the time, because the church, the local church, needs it. It needs it. We're not going to be able to do this forever. We can't. So listen, this is episode 1, chapter 1. Don't know what season I'm on, but hey, listen, thanks for checking out the Reimagining Worship podcast. Next week, we're going to talk a little bit through cultivating the worship leader's heart. We're going to talk through spiritual preparation, all that kind of stuff. And I'll even say, lastly, you know what? It was a bad ending, because I'm going to just say one more thing. If you stayed on, this is like Avengers, because you can, anyways. Spiritual preparation is extremely important as a baseline and a ground level for the doggone worship leader. We're going to talk a lot more about this in part 2, but the importance of spiritual readiness, all of those things that we talked about before. Some of the basics are cool, but like shepherding, there's song selection, arrangements, caring for your like all those come with a spiritual preparation or a spiritual readiness that it takes. What's this potential worship leader's devotion life look like? What does his prayer time look like? What does his own worship time look like? What do their own worship time look like, I should say? So we're going to talk heavily about this next week. But for now, don't forget, check out trevorchin.com or reimaginingworship.org. And all of our information is going to be on. You can follow me on Instagram at tchin, TCHIN create, CREATES. Until next time.